Isn't that the greatest freaking coffee around?
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a snob about my coffee.
Me too.
What kind of coffee is it?
What?
What kind of coffee is it?
Well, I mean, it's just, Don Francesco's, but it's made, in my Jura Espresso, which is really made for making espresso, but it makes a nice, good cup of...
Americano.
Yeah.
I just, have you ever met Antonio Fornerice? He's in Puerto Rico. He's a big voiceover actor.
I've heard
Has a
his name.
studio. He's been to several of the conventions. Whenever he comes into town, put him in my guest room and all that. And so we developed a nice friendship. And just out of the blue, the other day, I got this package, and it was a huge bottle, a bag of coffee. And it's a really good coffee from Puerto Rico. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to dive into it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nice, strong brew, Puerto Rican brew.
Mr. Bailey says it works again.
Sure it does.
He's like, I don't know what's going on. My computer has the devil in it. I said, call the priest.
George Green in the StreamYard link
Sure.
in the chat on the
6, 7, whatever the number was.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Oh, that helps a whole lot. I can actually see it.
Thank you.
So, Sue, you said there was a bit of a reverb.
From
How would you describe the reverb? Like a actual reverb effect, or just the room sounds echoey? I don't know.
the room cannot sound echoey.
Yeah, I don't.
You and I have seen to it that nothing echoes in
If
here.
she's hearing a reverb, it might have been because I unplugged the camera and then it. Is this microphone? Is the mic in StreamYard muted on that one? It is, isn't it? Oh, I can mute it.
When you do that.
There you go. Now the reverb should be gone now, Sue. Mute your speaker, please, Dan, or Jeff.
That was I. That was I.
You're killing me. You're goddamn killing me.
Right.
All right, now, Sue, everybody's mic is muted on this end except the main show. Okay. Beautiful. 1 minute to go. Okay, people are filing in. Beautiful. We got people on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, all three platforms. That's cool. Do you find there's a pickup in momentum and activity on LinkedIn recently?
Yes,
The
yeah.
last, I don't know, 6 years.
I've noticed a big jump.
It's good. I've been on there since, I don't know, the very beginning. But
All right, it's 5 o'clock.
all right,
Do you know where your children are?
Sue is going to count us in, and I'll count out loud too. But
Okay.
I'm watching
The main
There she
cam
goes.
over
5,
here, and then
4, 3, 2.
hey, it's time for Voiceover Body Shop. How is everybody doing this week? We have a great guest tonight. He's like sitting right next to me, Jeff Howell,
Hello, hello.
the dean of voiceover coaches here in Hollywood. Works with everybody. Some really amazing people. And we're going to talk mostly about dubbing and some of the other things. So if you've got questions for him, throw it in the chat room. Jeff Holman, who is actually sitting here in the studio with us today,
He's here.
will be monitoring the chat room. If you've got a question, throw it in there, and we will get those questions in just a little while. So are you ready, Mr. Whittam?
Ready to go.
It's time for Voiceover Body Shop right now. Voiceover Body Shop is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com, become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George.
Why there's no audio? Do you have to leave? Maybe you have to leave that shot on the whole time? Oh, there we go. We're good.
Is there audio now?
Let's pick it up like we came right out of the break.
Okay.
I mean, came right out of the intro.
Oh, okay.
So reintroduce the show.
That's
and
right.
we're
All
good.
right.
Okay.
All right. Now I have to edit this. Okay.
We always edit it, don't you?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You know. And when I don't, that's when everything gets out of sync. Anyway.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, how you doing out there? I'm Dan Leonard,
And I'm George Whittam.
and this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
or VOBS. How's everybody going out there? What's going on in the voiceover world? We're happy to have you with us. Again, if you've got a question for our guest or for George and I when we talk Tech Talk a little bit later on, send it in the chat room, and Jeff Holman will take care of that and make sure that we get that question right here, somewhat within view of my aging eyes here. Anyway, our guest tonight is the fabulous Jeff Howell, one of the best-known coaches here in L.A. You teach everything.
I do.
From what I'm seeing, of course. Now,
Everyone, too.
yeah, exactly. Now there was some confusion on your resume when I was like, okay, well, let's get everything right here on for our
Yes.
promos for the show.
Yes.
But where are you now, and what are you doing?
So I am working for myself. I have my own company, Howell Productions, Inc., and I went out on my own 8 years ago. And since then, I basically will pretty much produce, direct anything that comes my way. And through this journey over these last 8 years, I've ended up immersing myself in the dubbing world quite a bit. But yet I still dabble in commercial and promo and narration, a little bit of animation as well. And I basically, whenever anyone's asked me about what types of projects I enjoy doing, I just say I enjoy doing all of it. And also, as you just mentioned, I coach as well. And occasionally we'll do a demo if I have time. So anyway, but I love what I do. I love every part of this business, and especially as of late, the dubbing business, which has its challenges, which I can go into, but it's an exciting newer part of our business.
Yeah. Now, during the pandemic, of course, dubbing became real big time because nothing could be produced here in LA
Exactly,
or in other places.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of material in Europe and Turkey and some of these other places. It had to be dubbed. And I noticed that it's a lot tighter than it used to be.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
it's no longer someone talking
Yeah.
and their mouth keeps moving, something along those lines. What were some of the technological changes?
Well, I think that what we noticed during the pandemic was that the technology, when it worked, it was fantastic. But as we found, everyone has a different sounding booth, and with dubbing, just like ADR, you have to sound like and the mixers have to mix it so that it sounds like everyone's in the same room. And that's a real challenge. And I tip my hats off to the mixers because they really had a big job during that time to make all the rooms sound essentially the same. And, and that's where, George, certainly you can step in on this too, because of the acoustics of everyone's, you could say, have a closet, get a good microphone, call it a day. But, I can't even tell you, it was almost comedic when we'd see the camera of the closets and what they were doing to make it soundproof or to keep the dynamics and the acoustics so that it sounded good, and it was a crazy time. But we got around that, and we also found too that with dubbing, the sync is an issue, and for us to be able to judge whether or not your performance is syncing up properly, we need to be able to look at it at that time. And even though you would record and we would have the engineer line it up, and then I would have to judge really quickly if I liked the performance, if we captured it, and also if the sync worked. But sometimes the sync was about 10 seconds off in terms of when we were recording, and that made it a little daunting to judge the performance as we were going along. So what we found was it took more time. And as we all, I don't know if you know or not, but dubbing, a lot of it is based on time in terms of how you're paid. So it cost a lot more money talent-wise during that time period to capture the voices. And also, as we all know, little clicks and things happen when you're dubbing, when you're using something off Wi-Fi, or hopefully not Wi-Fi, but when we were doing remotes. And so we'd have to cover everything twice at least. Even if I liked the take and it sounded great, we do a safety, because sometimes we don't hear those little imperfections until after you've disconnected. And so it just took a lot more time. And those were, I think I answered your question, the technological changes. I mean, we're still able to do it, of course. It's just it costs more money because it costs more time. It takes more time.
Right. Well, there was the development of karaoke style with dubbing. I mean, it used to be, watch the film, you hear beep, beep.
Yeah, the three pop.
And
right?
you'd watch, and then they came up with karaoke where it just comes across right in sync with the actor.
Right,
which
exactly.
probably takes a lot of effort on the other end in preparing that.
Oh, yeah.
And that made it a lot easier. And, and I've done a couple of projects in various places all over the place. It's always fun getting up at 6:30 in the morning to do something at 8:30 at night in Mumbai.
Right, exactly.
So it's like, okay, I'm awake, I can do this. And then somebody, okay, now you're going to do it this way. It was a lot of fun. It's always fun doing it, and it's always great working with people in other places. But it's not that easy. I mean, people don't realize that it's acting. You've got to watch what's going on and imitate that particular action and emotion of the character.
Actually makes you think of something. Did you notice any kind of a shift in the performances overall? Was there anything that changed in the way people performed because they were forced to work from home, or was it harder to get the performances too? Not only was the technical time, but the actual. No, let's do that again. Let's get a little bit more. Was that an issue?
It's a good question, and I think for the most part, what I found was if the actor had experienced dubbing already, they were fine.
Yeah.
But as we have found in the dubbing world, we end up using new people all the time because we have specific needs for a specific show or film. And so oftentimes we'll end up casting new people, and I love that. I love working with new people. And maybe we cast them because it was a great voice match, or they had a specific skill of being bilingual in a certain language that we were dubbing, and we needed two languages as opposed to just English. And so oftentimes we would find ourselves working with someone who may not have that much dubbing experience. So the process of acting in that dubbing realm was more of a challenge for them, especially being remote as opposed to being in the studio with us. So to answer your question, yes, we did find that to be somewhat significant, that difference, if they didn't have the experience.
But even if I don't mean to push the subject, if they were in the studio and still had that inexperience, do you think that was just sort of magnified because they weren't in a studio?
Absolutely. Because for the most part, when you get someone new, my job as a director, various jobs actually, various hats, but one of them is to be sort of the ambassador and the host of the session, and to make them feel as comfortable as possible, and to walk them through the dubbing process. And just like you said, Dan, the scrolling across the screen, I oftentimes try to say, if you've ever done karaoke, then you definitely should be able to, grab this okay. But it is odd if you've never had experience doing it and you're in a dark room, as a small studio booth, and you're looking at a big screen, and all of a sudden you see these things fly by, and symbols that mean certain breaths, and whether open mouth, closed mouth, or there may be an asterisk, which means it's a mouth flap or a clap or something like that. So it's just trying to get them used to that particular language, so that when they are watching it, they're in that process, in that booth, in giving us that performance, that it becomes more natural because they're thinking less about the technique of it, and now they're really able to just embrace the acting. So
and let's talk about the acting. I mean, how do you? I mean, and you're coaching people on doing this, you're directing them, but you're also teaching this. What exactly do you have to teach people in order to get this done right?
I think that what I've noticed is that, in terms of the acting, first of all, a lot of it is rhythm. If you have an ear for rhythm, I found that musicians are really good at dubbing because they have a sense of rhythm. And because as they're viewing back and listening, as we're all sitting there viewing the material, looking at the scroll going across, studying the scene, thinking about the tone, the emotion, they're also listening to the rhythm. And that's so important because that's how we're lining up the words so that the cadence is accurate enough so that it isn't as jarring when you're watching the labials, the lip flaps. And so anyway, but in terms of answering your question about the acting, it's all about the thinking about the emotional sort of intent of the scene, how we express or how that actor expressed the emotion and vocally and trying to match that as closely as possible, and also thinking about the other things, the physical movement going on, whether it's a breath when they're if they're getting excited and they're starting to increase their breath because their adrenaline, the original actor, their adrenaline was flowing, and so they were getting excited. So we want that to match that as closely as possible. So when you're an actor in dubbing, you're thinking about a lot of different things, and not just how you sound, but what's going on in the scene emotionally, physically, as well as vocally. So there's a lot to it, and a lot to think about because you're having to wear a couple of hats. You're trying to do the specific skill of watching the scroll and being precise with hitting the words where they're supposed to hit when it hits the cue line. But in addition to that, you've got to wear that creative hat where you're being emotional and you're in the scene and you're thinking about what's my arc? What am I trying to achieve in this scene? How am I reacting? And so it's wearing all these different hats and thinking about just making sure that you're hitting the marks. And so it's definitely a definite challenge, which I love.
Yeah. I found it very challenging in the times that I've done it. And, it's like, again, capturing the emotion of somebody. And then, you listen to the scene and they're talking whatever language they're talking in. And sometimes their emotional, the way they express it might be different than how we do it.
Right.
And that's, how do you make it sound like English, or how do you make it sound like it's that? And they may go on for a little bit, and they're like, okay, you missed that mouth flap there, and all right, let's go back, all right, and do that. And then, of course, they go in, and they're like, okay, now we can do this. And you can see them doing it, or at least tell that they're doing it, and then they're like, okay, come back. And that, of course, is what takes up the time.
Did you get like a rehearsal offline, or like here's what's going to happen, here's the process before the actual stepping into the studio? Or
No.
You just go.
It's cold.
No prep. It's
Yeah.
cold.
No prep,
It's cold.
eh?
Well, it's cold, but yet we let
prep
them
for the technical side.
Right.
Here's what it's going to look like. This is what you're going to do.
Oh yeah, no, they help you set it up. Here's how, because some different
gotcha.
companies
Oh, yeah.
use different platforms.
Right,
Sure.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Oh, definitely, because you're right. And sometimes the producers will call the day before and make sure it sounds okay.
Sure.
And make sure you've got a handle on all the technology so that when we're actually on the clock, you're off to the races. So.
Once again, our guest is Jeff Holman. He knows all this stuff about dubbing, which is big time business right now.
He's over there, though.
Yeah, he's Jeff.
That's
Jeff Howell.
That's Jeff.
That was guaranteed to happen.
I knew it was going to happen. I did the same
and
thing
if it
with
wasn't you, it was
PJ
gonna be me.
Oakland,
So now
Oakland
that
Leslie. See, I just do that.
Now that you
constantly.
did it, I don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Our guest is Jeff Howell. Jeff Holman's here, but Jeff Howell is here.
I'm here.
Good luck.
That's right. And if you've got a question for him about dubbing and other things in the voiceover business, of which he knows absolutely everything, just put it in the chat room, and we'll get to that question in just a little bit. Well, now that it can be done remotely, and people can come into the studio, but it can be done remotely. And during the pandemic, certainly it was being done remotely. Did you find a lot of people who were perhaps out of work actors that were like, "Oh, I can do dubbing"? Was there a lot of that, and a huge influx of people saying, "Okay, I can do this for now"?
Well, yeah, certainly. I think that as the word has gotten out about dubbing, I think there's been certainly a sort of interest universally from various communities across the United States and internationally to get involved with dubbing.
Right.
It's another revenue stream for the actors, and certainly it's interesting work. It's not necessarily the highest paying part of our business, certainly, but I know that for the most part, 99% of the actors that I've had in or have connected with remotely have said they've really enjoyed the process and that it's helped them grow as a voice actor, certainly because they are more in touch with their emotions and all that in terms of how they sound emotionally in a certain scene, that sort of thing. And they just love the work. I mean, who doesn't like the work? And especially if it's union, you at least get some contributions to your pension and health and that sort of thing. And I think there's more right now. My sense of it is there's more union than non-union out there in terms of dubbing. Now, that wasn't the way it started. 8 years ago when I first started doing this, Netflix had not negotiated the contract with SAG yet. So it was more non-union than union. But that is now changed quite a bit. And so I think a lot of actors love it. I mean, they enjoy doing it, and there is a lot of interest about it, especially because now you can't not watch Netflix and not see something that's dubbed.
Oh, yeah.
Some are better than others. And, and I will say this, and we can talk about this more if you want about the quality of dubbing out there, that, listen, you can have a relatively perfectly seamless dubbing experience on a project, but if it's a bad movie, it's a bad movie. If it's a bad TV show, it's a bad TV show. Whether the dubbing's good or not. Because several people have said, "Oh, I've watched dubbing, but I asked them which one." I'm like, well, of course it was a terrible show.
What do you want?
Exactly. So it's definitely sometimes people do find it a challenge to watch dub material, whether it's good or not. And my suggestion always is that when you first start watching a program, a show, or a film, try not to focus on the lip flap right away. Try to go a little off center when you're first watching the program. And then if you get interested in it and you start buying the voices for that character, then later on your brain sort of says, okay, I know it's dubbed, but I'm still really enjoying it. So you'll allow yourself to get into it, and then you'll forgive the lip flap. But if you just go into it right away with a sort of judgment against it, you're not going to enjoy it. You're just going to want to turn because you just don't want to. Your brain says, oh, it's not lining up. Well, of course it's not going to line up. It's a different language.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it would be great if we could demonstrate how all this works. But if somebody gets hired for it, I mean, you audition for it, or you're on a roster where they try, you see it, you learn how to do it, essentially. But it helps if you're a good actor.
It does.
That's really important. The technology's not too complicated, but again, it's really hard to learn how to really sync up with it. And because like you said, we're dealing with a couple of different things. There's the platform they're recording on. You're usually on Zoom with them. So it's all got to work just right. But hopefully people can learn how to do that. How does one get into it?
That's the $1 million question.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Let me come up with a few bills here.
Yes, exactly. So it helps if you live close to a dubbing facility because it is sort of an easier process being able to have access to dubbing if you live in the city where dubbing is going on. Right. It's not impossible to book dubbing if you live in other parts of the country. But, my feeling is that if you are truly interested in it, I would go online and start getting the names of the major dubbing houses in New York and LA. And I think there are a few in Dallas and they're in other markets as well, but mainly LA and New York. And contact them. You can email them, go on their portals and see if they have a submission portal. If they do, submit. If not, then you could call them up, and I'm sure the receptionist that picks up the phone will have the answer to that question because they probably get that call all the time. Then, if you have an agent, let your agent know you're interested in dubbing as well. Now, I will say there are some agents that don't really care to chase that work because the contract that Netflix negotiated with SAG did not include the 10% commission. And so if you do pay commission to the agent, it comes out of the talent. And because you're paid relatively low, the agents sometimes feel uncomfortable going after that low amount of money from the actor. So it really is just such a delicate conversation to have with your agent. But you could at least let your agent know that if auditions come their way, that you're interested in being submitted. Because some actors are busier in other ways and they just don't want to chase it, but you can let your agent or manager know. You can also let your friends know that are also doing dubbing, and they can recommend you. I get a lot of submissions through that way.
I've certainly seen that. So there's a lot of referral business in this. Oh, you should be doing this, or talk to this person, or something along those lines.
Exactly.
Is this one of the companies?
Yeah, that's definitely one of them. Yeah. Now, I will tell you, here are a couple of little secrets. First of all, a lot of people say, "What do I submit?" And the commercial demo is probably the better demo, because if you have a recently produced commercial demo, you probably have a demo that has a lot of conversational reads. That tells us exactly where your voice naturally sort of it lies at this point in time. I would not submit an animation or game demo because it's just too much, too spread out. Because in the dubbing world, I'm pretty much hiring you for your voice. I'm not getting sort of crazy voices. However, I will say I did a couple of animated series this last year for dubbing, and so I was hiring some wacky voices, certainly. But for the most part, for live action, you're going to be judged and hired based on your natural voice. So if you feel that your commercial demo is sort of, let's say it's a little older and has a lot of character voice work on there, or if you just feel that you don't have enough conversational, then what you can do is just choose a couple lines of various attitudes from a script. It could be from a play, a movie, whatever, and just read them and record yourself doing them, as long as you have a good enough sounding mic, and hopefully you do, and just string those together and submit those, because that gives us a nice baseline sort of sound on you. It doesn't have to be fancy, no music, no sound effects, no nothing. We want to hear your voice.
Probably the more you try to be slick with production, that will work against you.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't try to be too clever.
Yeah.
Just act.
Exactly. Just do it yourself. Just record yourself doing it. But just, again, make sure it's a good sounding voice print. And then number 2, the one thing that I will say that is attractive from my standpoint is if you are bilingual or trilingual, that does help in the dubbing world, because there are times when we have to get various languages from the same person. And so that would help to show that sort of ability. Fancy accents, we don't really need those as much. It's more about just if you speak fluent languages, other languages fluently. So those are my 2 secrets. Do your own demo, and also just let us know that you speak multiple languages fluently. And then I would just say submit to the dubbing houses across the country, and that will get you a better chance, I believe, of getting in the door with dubbing than trying to wait for some random audition to come through, unless you have an agent that gets a lot of dubbing work. And there are a couple of agencies out here that are very open to dubbing, and so they do send out auditions that they receive from the dubbing houses, and that's how a lot of their talent get on these rosters. Yeah. And the good news too is that when you get on these rosters, and if you're really good, the directors all talk to each other, and we do our own casting. And there have been a number of times where I've done casting in the lobby where I'll be talking to another director, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need such and such. They're like, oh, you've got to try so and so. And so I'll go and listen to the demo, and I'll hire them. I don't even read them. I'll just hire them. So that's to answer your question from 5 minutes ago.
Okay. Well, a good referral source is a very important.
Absolutely.
When the right person is also casting and directing it's like, no, I got the guy.
Absolutely.
You don't go, I don't know. You go, okay, let's get to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Once again, we're talking with Jeff
Howell.
Just making sure.
You knew it, but you didn't trust yourself.
Oh, it's like the thing with Cliff Zellman and my Aunt Zelda. There was Zelda Feldman and Cliff Zellman. I've always confused them.
Great.
It happens when you get over 65. Suddenly, things just don't work quite as well as they used to.
It starts a lot earlier than that in my house.
And guess what?
I hear you.
It doesn't get any better. We're with Jeff Howell. If you have a question for him, it is your imperative to talk with Jeff Holman, who is in our chat room, and get those questions in now, because he knows a lot about a lot of different things that go on in professional.
You can put those in LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. We're monitoring all those channels.
We're everywhere. Anyway, I have noticed, because I watch an awful lot of TV, because my life is pretty boring. A lot of great stuff. You were talking about some shows that really suck, but I've seen a lot of good stuff coming out of Europe, some great stuff out of Israel and Turkey. They've been studying here, haven't they, how to make good stuff, because I can see how it is that it's formatted the way it is in Hollywood, but they're doing it in their own studios. I know there's a big studio in Morocco where a lot of stuff is getting done, and some really good actors. Of course, now I'm starting to notice the same voice for different characters. Like, wasn't that the guy that played this in that other show?
Yeah.
So
You
there's
got a
probably
good ear, you start picking those.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Well, of course, I have a good ear. I listen to voices all day.
Yeah.
Where do you think the best stuff is coming from?
Well, from my projects now. I'm
Yes.
just
Oh,
kidding.
well, okay. Well,
That's such a boy. That's a question I haven't faced, but I would say that, the secret is Netflix has studios all across the world, all around, and so they have a standard. So that's why you're noticing that the overall quality from all these companies, all these companies in all the other countries, it's starting to look better and better and better because Netflix has created this standard and technical standard as well.
You can look that right up on their website.
Yeah, exactly.
You can learn all about what they want to hear from you.
Exactly. So I think that, to be honest with you, I don't even know if there's a certain country or area of the world where better product is coming out of. I think there's just such great material coming out of the United States, to be honest with you. But what happens is that the process, my understanding, is that, for example, Netflix will have, they'll invest in shooting a film, let's say in Israel, and then they'll already plan to, we're going to dub it in French, we're going to dub it in Spanish. So they already have those rough tracks, all that being sent to all the different markets at the same time. Like I may be dubbing something from Israel at this time, and Paris is working on it at the same time. You could have Belgium working on it, or Germany, Munich, or wherever. You could have the different offices all around the world working on the same project at the same time. So, and that's probably the case because, I don't know if you noticed that when you go on and you look at all the different languages, they all come up at the same time. You want to watch it in Spanish, you want to watch it in German, you want to watch it in, whatever. So, so we're all working at it, I would imagine, on the same product at the same time.
right. And it's about 10 minutes of credits afterwards.
Well,
As they
I was
go
gonna
through
say.
the Swedish guys, and here's the Japanese
Oh, yeah.
dubbers. And
If you want to know what these studios are, watch the
Yeah,
credits.
exactly.
Because they're all
Very true.
credited at the end, at the post roll. So you'll know
Absolutely.
exactly who they are.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Once again, we're talking with Jeff Howell. You can ask questions. I'm running out of questions because I know all this stuff. No, I don't. But you've also taught promo. I've taken your promo classes, and that's very similar type of work. Not a lot of people getting into promo. As I like to say, it's a small cadre of folks who are consistently getting the big network stuff. What is it that they're doing that is different than, say, everybody else who's trying?
What's the secret?
What's
Yeah,
the
well,
secret
tell
of
us.
promo? Well, that's definitely a secret. Well, I think the number one secret of getting into promo is being aligned with an agent or manager that is very active in that area. Not all talent agencies have active promo departments. They all do promo, but some of them have promo departments that have a bit more a weight. They have more people maintaining those departments. They have their contacts at these networks, and I think that just like, because I used to be an agent a long time ago, and I know that we all have these highly coveted relationships, and so come to me, don't go to another agent, come to me, and I'll give you the talent and that sort of thing, which is understandable. Of course, it's a relationship business, so more so than commercial. I think commercial is more spread out, but promo is still more relationship based, and so I think that the true secret is access, and access is through a known manager or agent that has those sort of contacts. And then when you go beyond that, certainly the sound of promo has changed. And when I'm speaking about promo, when I'm teaching promo, whether it's at the various conventions around the country or in classes here in LA, I always say that, we're all at the mercy of pop culture and what's going on in terms of the taste of the VO business, whether it is commercial or promo. And so what was considered more of a standard at one time, which was that more bombastic sort of coming up on CBS, that sort of read, is not as standard any longer. And so you find a less aggressive read, but it is still engaged. For example, it may not be coming up, but it might be coming up on CBS. It's not as loud and vocalized and stabbed or staccato or bombastic, as we always say, but it's still invested. And one of the networks said, we just want our promo people to sound like they like the show. And I know that sounds like a sort of a basic, but a lot of these actors, because some of the more active ones that are going from job to job to job, they start dialing it in. No disrespect to them, because that is a sort of, that's what happens. When you do it all the time, then it becomes so automatic that sometimes you have to stop and remind yourself, oh, I have to like this show. And so it's sort of going back to the acting a little bit and thinking about researching the show you're reading for, whether it's an audition or an actual session. But so the reads right now are a little bit less aggressive. Now, there are exceptions to every rule. I will sometimes spend an afternoon going through various networks or cable nets and listening to the programming and the promos. And sometimes you will find still that style that's a bit more aggressive. But, it certainly has changed. And diversity certainly has had an effect on promo. And then also with the variation, the multitudes of different networks, and even on a network, they may have different sounds, different day parts. You might have an actor doing this day part. You might have an actor doing just this one show, or you'll have an actor that has a whole evening, or they may be just daytime and not evening, or, so there are such variations out there. So the good news is, it's not that limiting. It's not just the deep-voiced men that are booking now. You've got a lot of women getting into it now more than ever before. And again, like I mentioned, diversity certainly is there as well. So it's an interesting time, but promo is definitely a bit harder to get access to, and I think mainly it's just the access of how do I get those opportunities, those scripts. This is again a part of networking. I think a big part of VO should be networking. I think promo is one that could really be attained through networking, and that is by going to the different conventions and trying to hunt down the people that are there speaking about promo and chatting with them and picking their brains. You never know what might come from that conversation, and also people who are in
need
the
somebody
promo.
right now for something like that.
Yeah, exactly,
Alrighty.
exactly.
All right, we're talking with Jeff Howell. Again, if you got a question, throw it in the chat room. We're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back with your questions and more talk about all this stuff right after this. So do not go away.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on The Voiceover Body Shop.
Oh, hi. If you live in a house and your voiceover studio is in that house, you don't want to disturb everybody else who's living in there. So what you need are good headphones that are made specifically for voiceover. And that's why we have Harlan Hogan's signature series Voice Optimized Headphones 2.0. What's so great about these? Well, one, they have a very flat response, so you only hear exactly what it is you sound like. Second, incredibly comfortable. Leather pads on the outside filled with memory foam, a really comfortable headband that really works with your head. The most important thing, you can wear them for long periods of time. That's really important. Where do you get them? Only at voiceoveressentials.com. That's voiceoveressentials.com. Just go there, look at the headphones, and get them now. Tell them we sent you. Thanks, Harlan.
Well, it's time to thank our sponsors, Source Elements, the creators of Source Connect, and Nexus. The new version of Nexus has been released, which is an ever-evolving platform that allows you to do a lot more things with the Source Elements family of products, mainly being able to have meetings, bring clients in from lots of different locations, and integrate them right into a production much more easily than assembling inputs and outputs from different conferencing apps and all the other mess that goes along with it. So that's what Nexus is. But honestly, voice actors, those of you who are watching the show, which is probably most of you, you're going to want to know what Source Connect is. And the best way to do that is to head over to source-elements.com and go check out the content they have. They have a lot more content on learning Source Connect and getting it set up. I also have a video that's getting real long in the tooth. It's been out almost, 3.5 years, but if you go on YouTube and search for Source Connect for voiceover, I also have a good long video on there that will give you an orientation about how to get started with Source Connect. But get yourself set up with an account, get it downloaded, learn how the thing works and understand the workflow. So when those agents come along and say, this job requires Source Connect, you're going to be ready. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thank you so much for sponsoring us, Source Elements. And let's get on to the questions right after this.
Well, hey there, it's David H. Lawrence with VO Heroes, and wouldn't it be cool if there was a very simple tool, drag and drop tool, that would guarantee that the audio you need to upload to ACX or any other audiobook platform is perfectly set up in terms of the text standards, the root mean square normalization, the peak normalization, the noise floor? Guess what? There is. And I want you to have it absolutely free. It's called Audio Cupcake, and you can find it at audiocupcake.com. I helped create this software. It was built to my specs and my standards for when I do audiobooks, and I know it's going to work for you. Now, it's only available for Macintosh because you Windows users, you have the ability to use other tools that work for you. But in this case, you edit your final raw WAV file for a chapter, you drop it onto Audio Cupcake, and out comes the 192K mono MP3 file you can upload immediately. That's audiocupcake.com, audiocupcake.com. I hope you love it.
This is Bill Ratner, and you're enjoying Voiceover Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
And we're back on Voiceover Body Shop. Our guest is Jeff Howell. We're talking about dubbing. We're talking about promo. And we can talk a little bit about commercials if you want. Getting a lot of people were like, I want to learn how to do commercials. And most people got to realize that most voiceover is not showbiz. That there's a lot of mundane things that have to be recorded. As a matter of commercials, probably this amount of what's out there. Of course, that's the stuff that pays the most.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you get a job like that, it's really more gravy, but you've got to really get all these other types of work. The e-learning and the medical narration. And you've been teaching anybody that type of work?
It's interesting you say that. Someone did come to me recently about medical narration, and I referred them to someone else because I really felt that, even though I've certainly been exposed to that, there are other experts out there that I prefer sending people to, especially when I'm really, really busy. But I'd say, for example, when people come to me for animation, even though I've directed animation, I've certainly cast it. But, I love sending people to the pros that know all those tricks that take it to another level. And I mean, I certainly will coach auditions and animation auditions because it's about the acting, and that I can certainly do. But it's I think there are so many people out there that, and I'm not criticizing other coaches at all because we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I certainly have mine. But, the thing is, I think that there are so many people, they're such specialists in certain fields. I'm very happy to send people to those specialists because when someone comes to me and they want to, get into a certain part of the business, I want to try to give them the best advice and send them to the best person for that, that particular area of VO. But yeah, I've been certainly exposed to political narration, and that's big, of course, and medical and legal narration and in-show narration, of course, and all that.
Right.
I mean, I've worked in the audiobook area a bit as well, but I always send people to Scott because why would I want to do it when you have Scott Brick there?
I mean, you can't do any better than that.
I know.
He is the absolute king of this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Once again, if you've got a question for Jeff Howell, throw it in the chat room right now, and we'll get to that question. Like the first question we have, Mr. Whittam, your turn.
Yes, we've got one from Fiber Jazz, who watches us from YouTube. Two of them, actually. First, do you coach for descriptive narration for the visually impaired? Is that something that goes into your
audio description?
Audio description,
yeah.
No, I do not. But I do know a couple of people that do that sort of thing. And that's definitely a specific area of the business. I did hear that might be one of the areas that AI may end up stepping into more sooner than later because it doesn't require as much acting nuance as other parts of VO. But don't quote me on that because that is not confirmed. That's just something, a rumor that I heard out there. But of course, everyone's concerned about AI in every area of our business, of course. Right. But not to say that you shouldn't try to get into it because who knows? It may be around for quite a while.
Yeah. He has a second question, and I'm not, maybe you'll interpret this better than me. I didn't quite fully understand, but He says, for dubbing, do you need to know the original language, or are there other ways to synchronize with the speaker? Does that make sense to you?
It does. You do not need to understand the original language. However, if you do, boy, does it help. There have been a number of times where we've had, especially in the world of the Spanish, the Latin projects, the Spanish-speaking projects, and I've had, oftentimes I'll try to cast people with some sort of background in the Spanish language. And so there have been a couple of times where we received sort of an odd translation, and they'll actually chime in and say, oh, you know what they meant. And so we'll sometimes readapt on the fly based on the feedback that the actor or actress gave us because of their unique understanding. So you do not need to know the language, the original source language, but it certainly helps. And in terms of syncing it up, that's what the job of the adapter. The actor doesn't have to worry about that as much. Of course, it helps if you have a good sense of rhythm and you spot something and go, oh, you know what? I see an O labial, an O lip formation there, and I think I could put this word there. And we're certainly open to your input, but the adapters, and they're so highly valued. I mean, I think a strong adaptation is essential for a well-produced sort of easier sort of production process when you're doing dubbing. And the adapter is the one that takes the translation and they put it through VoiceQ or whatever, DubX or whatever system. And they're the ones that spend hours and hours and days lining up everything. So by the time it gets to the studio, it's already gone through.
That makes sense, because
QC.
we will watch a dubbed Netflix show. And we'll watch with the subtitles.
Yeah.
And we'll notice when they don't line up, we're like, why are they? That's exactly
why.
what it is. They've adapted it to make it fit better with what the actor's doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, makes total sense.
Try not to watch with the subtitles because your brain will, there'll be yet another reason why you'll hate dubbing.
Yeah. Well, my girlfriend's ESL, so she still does like to read the subtitles to just further grasp what's being said. But that makes a lot of sense. Now I get it. Okay.
Yeah, that's the answer to that question.
All righty. Next one is from Grace Newton. She asks, what are some of the red flags that talent should look for when approached for dubbing work?
Oh.
I know exactly what she's talking about. That sometimes there are a lot of scams out there. It's like, oh, we need you to do this, and we're going to rent you this. You have to rent the studio and things along those lines.
Well, I think that clearly, if you're working with a reputable dubbing house, then there really are no red flags. You can choose to take the job or not, and a good dubbing house will tell you what you're getting into because oftentimes you may have a sensitivity for a certain type of material or against a certain type of material. And so they, especially if there's nudity involved or language, raw language involved, they will certainly tell you that. A reputable shop, when they're casting, and they're calling the talent, they let them know that. The pay is what it is. In terms of union and non-union, it can be a little iffy, but most of the production houses here in LA are union, and so that's not even an issue really.
Does GVAA or any of those organizations have a rate card? So you have like if you get something that comes to you and says, here's the rate, you can verify that they're...
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm with GVA, and I have no idea. I haven't looked at the rate card to see if they have a dubbing. I'm sure they probably do by this point. I imagine. And they're great folks, by the way, and I'm sure they have it. But if not, I think that it's. I'm really trying to come up with an answer to that question. I can't think of any real red flags. Just follow your gut instinct. If it's some sort of production facility in the middle of the country or even in LA or New York that you've never heard of, and you can certainly let Google be your friend. And
if you can't find anything about them, and nobody knows anything about them.
Exactly. Ask around, and if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And obviously it goes without saying, if any facility asks you to pay them, then obviously that would be a huge red flag for me. They're supposed to be paying you. But that being said, trying to get paid from these facilities, that might be the issue as well if you're using one that isn't reputable. So definitely try to check them out. And that's all I can really think of to answer that question.
Yeah. And now Jeff Holman gets to ask his own question.
Would you like me to do it to camera or
the camera's looking right at you?
Yeah, look at the little.
Would you like me to do it to
little-
camera? Or
Yes,
to
you
Jeff?
will.
The little
Okay.
chicken.
A little bit of acting here.
Chicken
and-
head.
Great. So, Jeff, you mentioned a couple of times that the pay is not that great for dubbing. What kind of pay are we talking about?
Well, the union has negotiated with Netflix, and they raised it to a 3-hour minimum, and then after that you get paid per half. I think it's per half hour after that, and I think I should have probably looked this up because I don't write the contracts, so I think it's around the 300 range for the 3-hour, and then you get a buyout, a 50% buyout for the residuals. And on top of that, and then you get a percentage on top of that to cover any overages if you go over the 3-hour period. So I think it averages, I don't know, you probably have an actor that would probably call in and say otherwise, but I think you end up for one session maybe averaging around, $400 or $500 maybe. I don't know. But that's for a 3-hour
like
minimum.
Well, sounds like a fair pay.
Solid.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Solid days.
Maybe a little lower now that I'm saying that, but anyway, but it's around there. Around there.
Don't
it's between
quote
3.
him.
It's about between 3 and 5. I really should have looked that up, and I didn't.
Quick, Google that.
Thanks for asking me a question I didn't have the answer to.
Once again, if you've got a question for Jeff, you still have lots of time to throw that in there so we can ask him that. We were talking a few minutes ago about, translation and stuff like that. I've been doing a bunch of stuff for a Turkish agency. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense in English. Where are you getting it? Clearly, they're using bad Google Translate to get this stuff. And again, you were saying that suggest this is what you have to do. Add a contraction in there because people don't talk
Yeah, I
like
was
that.
gonna say, well, how are you handling that with them?
Yeah, it's
Well, when that happens,
I go, I'm changing this because they trust me. They know that I'm
yeah, I
going to
would
do it
hope
right.
so. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Question from Max Goldberg says, are some promo houses willing to take on talent for scratch reads?
Yes. I know that when I worked at a promo company for about 17 years, certainly I utilized Scratch, and I'll tell you, it started a number of careers because they got really good at it. And my deal with the talent that Scratch for me is I would give them an MP3 of the finished spot so they could use that for a reel.
I'm going to make you define what that means. By the way,
okay.
scratching.
Okay.
Because we love throwing out jargon.
Yeah, sorry about that. Scratch is just basically a rough version of the spot. Because a lot of times when we write these spots, we don't know if they're going to work or not. So we'll have a scratch voice, meaning a temp voice, go in there and actually read it. And usually it's directed. And once we're happy with the read, we'll send that to the network for approval. And I'd say at least 25% of the time, 30% of the time, the network would say, we like that voice. And so we would just, if we didn't have to change it, I would just call that actor and say, who's your agent? Or I'd know their agent. And I'd say, we're sending you, we're filling out a contract for you. And call it a day. They were thrilled. And I loved it when that happened too, because those were people that were usually students of mine, or they were people that were referred to me. People whom I met networking out there, and I try to keep a list of people who are interested in scratching. So to answer your question, yes, I think that most production facilities certainly would be up for it because you're basically volunteering to be a scratch voice. Now, getting access to that is a little harder because you don't have as many outsourced production companies anymore that are producing promos. A lot of them are directly in-house because the technology is a lot cheaper now for the networks to be able to do it in-house. Certainly it's cheaper for them not to outsource it. And so it's getting into those networks, and that's a little bit of a harder sort of get. But there are some production companies. Again, that's a good Google search for you to see if you can find some of the production houses in LA or New York that would be able to, would be interested. And same for trailer companies as well. The trailer business, it's not quite as busy as it used to be because we're not hearing a lot of voices on trailers. But there's still trailer houses that will need test voices because they'll write big packages and send them to the networks, and then the networks can sit there and sit on those packages for months and months trying to decide which way to go. And ultimately, they may hire their go-to trailer person. We know that group of 10 or 12 that are out there doing it, but you never know when you might hit it, and they're going to say, we want a new voice, and that person sounds great. So you never know.
Yeah. And again, getting access to the studio is the end for a lot of people. How many times have we heard the story, well, I was doing a scratch track, or I was doing something for this, and somebody walks in and says, by the way, are you available to do this?
Absolutely.
And a lot of careers, I think almost every career I've ever, I've heard of, the people we've had on the show, oh yeah, it was by mistake, or it was, they were looking for somebody and somebody couldn't show up. And like, well, you try it. Like Don LaFontaine, that's how he started. It's fascinating.
It's true. Yeah.
That's the last one in the queue.
It is. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about, how you're teaching, where you're teaching, and where can people access you?
So I don't usually have my own group class here in Los Angeles because, my main priority, my main job is to produce and direct. So I'm usually busy with that. However, I'm very happy to be a guest speaker and appear in various classes in LA and New York. So I'm approached about those classes periodically, and I make those appearances. Also, I go to the several conventions. Sometimes I'll take a year off from this one or a year off from that one, just to re-energize and charge up my batteries and all that. But I do private coaching, mostly by Zoom, as most everyone, although I do have an office at LA Studios. And so now that things are a lot more open, and I do have a booth there in my office, so I'm certainly able to do in person if the person is in LA and wants to come in, and I certainly enjoy that process too. For people who want to reach me, I do have my own website. It's jeffhowellvo.com. Or you can email me at jeff@jeffhowellvo.com. And I will say this, and I say this continually, that please don't get frustrated if I don't get back with you right away. Feel free to email me on a regular basis. People have booked when they've done that, to be honest with you, because when I'm in a dark studio for hours and hours and hours, I just don't even have a minute to even check my emails. And so by the end of the day, when I go to check my emails, it's usually putting out production fires first. So sometimes the emails start shifting down into the box. And I actually had an actress who was a lovely person and has become a dear friend. At one point she said, I think you need an assistant. And I said, you know what, you're right. Yeah. But anyway, I love private coaching. I do it as often as I can. I love that process. I love coaching people in whatever area of voiceover that I feel strongest, that I can share that information with you. But also my goal is to teach you or to meet with you as little as possible, because I give you a lot of homework, and because I really feel like it's a joint process. I don't try to, because my work process is not to train actors every day. I'm directing sessions every day. So my goal is to, again, check in with you. Of course, if an actor is really feeling like they need to see me more often, I'm certainly there for them. But my goal is to try to get you independent of me so that you can train yourself, so it trains your own ear, and then for me to fine-tune you. So that, because again, the real world, unless you really can afford to have a director directing all your auditions for you, you're having to direct yourself. And so my feeling is that if I can give you skills to take and to work on your own, to be able to direct yourself and hear yourself, and I think that's the most important thing, and that's my sort of contribution to your career. And I feel like when you can do that, I've done a good job.
Well, you are a very busy guy, and we really appreciate you coming on tonight.
My pleasure.
And
My pleasure.
Letting us
My pleasure.
get all this wisdom in here.
Yes, of course. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
All right. Jeff Howell. I remembered that time. We'll be right back right after these messages, so don't go away.
You're still watching VOBS?
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
Hey, it's time to talk about one of our other great sponsors, voiceactor.com. Voiceactor.com. What is voiceactor.com? Look, as a voice actor, you have to have a website. It's important. It is the most, aside from just being talented and making sure that your demos are really good, you got to have a website to show people that you are there, that you have a footprint, an internet footprint. And it's not easy to do, especially if you've ever tried to design a website. Very difficult. You hire somebody to do it. You're talking 4 to 5, maybe 6 months of going back and forth and trying to get it right. Over at voiceactor.com, they've got templated websites. Super duper easy. You sign in, you create an account for free. You can start. And there are templates that you can look at. Oh, I like this one. Oh, I can put my picture there. And they are totally customizable with color, with where you put your pictures, all these sorts of things. And you can get your website up and running in half an hour, not 5 to 6 months. If you're trying to get your site up and running, that's the way to do it. And then they have a special offer for $20 a month. You will get your own URL, and it is just fantastic. Then you've got your website. And that's the most important thing. Go over to voiceactor.com. That's voiceactor.com and get your voice actor website up and running right now.
We are the World Voices Organization,
also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. Voiceover is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
and to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
a supportive and creative community,
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
our exclusive demo player for your personal website,
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library,
our annual WOVOCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network,
webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
We speak
for those
who speak for a living.
Yeah, hi, this is Carlos Alazraqui, the voice of Rocco, and you're watching Voiceover Body Shop.
Hey, we're back. There's a big empty chair here. All right, we'll fix that. We got to set it up for Tech Talk after this, and we've got some great stuff to talk about there. But our thanks again to Jeff Howell for coming in and talking to us about all the stuff that he does, which is an immense amount of stuff, and he is certainly one of the most knowledgeable people here in the business here in L.A.
You can tell he's an authority on the subject.
Yeah. Next week on this very show, it will be Tech Talk number 114. Believe it or not. And
the last one of the year, right?
It will be the last Tech Talk of the year because we're going to take a little time off, retool. You know, December's a weird month for me. Well, right now, because my anniversary is the day or after Thanksgiving. My wife's birthday is December 5th. You got Hanukkah sticking in there and Christmas and all that stuff.
When does it fall this year?
Where it always does, on the 25th of Kislev.
Of course.
It's the same time
It's the same.
every year.
Why ask the question?
I know. You ask that question every year. And then my birthday at the end of the year. It's like we got too much crap going on in November and December.
And we're trying to make some material changes to the way we produce the show. So
Just a little.
we're going to take a little break.
Yeah, we need a break. I mean, heck, we've been doing this show for 12 years. You'd think we'd be running out of things to talk about, but not. We need to thank the people, of course, who donate to the show, like Greg Cooper,
Grace Newton,
Christopher Epperson,
Robert Leadham,
Stephen Chandler,
Casey Clack,
Jonathan Grant,
Thomas Pinto,
Greg Thomas,
Hey Dr. Voice,
Antland Productions,
Martha Kahn,
949 Designs,
Sarah Borges,
Philip Sapir,
Brian Page,
Rob Ryder,
Shauna Pennington Baird,
Don Griffith,
Trey Mosley,
Diana Birdsall,
Maria Mackis,
and Sandra Manwiller. Thank you all for all your contributions and making the show technically amazing, especially if you're watching live. You see how amazing it actually is. You got any specials running?
Well, we just have our usual georgethe.tech/VOBS landing page. So we always have a discount code for you there. But in terms of other content, we do have some webinars in the hopper right now. We're going to do a little beginner podcast webinar. It's just sort
good
of
idea.
an absolute crash course for like everybody.
Stand in front of microphone, talk. It's
Yeah, it's more about the gear, of course, but we have that coming up at the end of the month. If you want to know what the webinars coming are, just go to georgethe.tech/webinars.
all righty. We need to thank our sponsors, of course, like Harlan Hogan's Voiceover Essentials,
VoiceOver Extra, Source
Elements,
those guys, VOHeroes.com,
VoiceActor.com,
and
worldvoices.org, world-voices.org, the industry
Dashing
association
all the way.
of freelance voice talent. And we're about to make some really cool changes there. And people say, what are you guys doing? We're doing what we always do, only we're going to make it better. So join up over at world-voices.org. We need to thank Jeff Holman, who's actually in the studio tonight. Get the shot of Jeff.
In the flesh.
Yeah, there he goes. Okay, so wave hello, Jeff. There you go. And now back over here. And we need to thank Sue Merlino, who's in a lot of pain, but she's still directing from her place in Burbank and getting it done remotely. It's amazing. We made it happen during the pandemic, and it still works when we're all here in the studio as well. But she had to stay home, and thanks for doing that. So feel better.
Thanks, Sue.
All righty. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Stay tuned for Tech Talk. If you're watching live, stay where you are and ask your questions about your home voiceover studio, because George and I just love talking about that stuff. Even if we don't have something to talk about, we find something to talk about. And it has to do with home voiceover studios, which is a really important part of your business. But I got to tell you, it's not an easy business. And getting your audio right is not easy. But you talk to us, we'll get it right. Because if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is Voiceover
Body Shop,
or VOBS. See you next week, kids.
Later. Let's let this one go without creating a complete calamity. I think you got it.
All right, thank you. You get the big boy chair.
This is the Rick Wasserman chair.
Is that where that came
This was
from?
in Rick's place at one point, yeah. Actually, for many years.
Unfortunately, Tara Strong found out my thought about the Tara Strong Memorial Chair.
Oh, no.
Somebody knew her and said, "Oh, I know her. I'll tell her that." Okay, we gotta crop this one just a little bit too.
Yeah, pan that around there a little bit. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah.
How do you like them apples?
Drop down a little bit more.
I can go up.
There we go. I think that's pretty close.
Okay. All right. It is Tech Talk number 114.
See me.
1, 2, 3, 4. Adjust for moi.
Jeff's getting his voice ready for a sing.
That's right. Gotta get ready.
Tech talk.
Okay, Sue, you tell us when you're ready. I'm watching your hands.
I can zoom in that shot a little bit more if you want.
Can he do it from
No,
Brio?
I can.
Oh, he's gonna punch in a little bit, Sue, on that Brio.
Come on, Brio. I know you're in there. Come on. I want to get myself connected. There we go. How's that?
Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah.
Well, much
Yeah.
better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tech Talk 114, take 1. Get
All
it
right, here we go.
That woke me up.
5, 4, 3.
Hey, it's time for VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech Talk. Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech Talk.
All right. Number 114. 114 in a new font. How do you like that?
Ooh, that font is cool.
How have we been doing this for 114 episodes of this? It's a huge catalog of stuff. And if you've missed some of it, it's still there. Anyway, we've got lots of stuff. You've got some stuff to talk about tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about some software updates that have caused people some trouble. Some new software that's causing some fixes.
Okay.
And actually making things better. And mostly software tonight.
All right. And I'm going to talk about riding the gain and proper microphone technique so you don't have to necessarily ride the gain or how you do that. So stay tuned. It's VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk right now. VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, the folks who bring you Source Connect. VOHeroes.com, become a hero to your clients with award-winning voiceover training. VoiceActor.com, your voiceover website ready in minutes. VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for voiceover success. And by World Voices, the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent. And now, here's your hosts, Dan and George. Well, hello there. I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
or VO BS. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech
Tech
Talk.
Talk.
Tech Talk.
Talk.
Tech Talk. Got to get
Tech
Jeff in there.
Talk.
Tech Talk.
There he
Tech
is.
Talk. All right.
Tech Talk.
The man,
Tech
the myth, the
Talk.
legend.
Talk. Tech.
The man, the
Talk.
myth, the
Tech.
legend.
Talk. Tech.
It's 11. Yeah. 11.
Can't wait to get the residuals on this. Can you?
I don't know if we can afford it.
All righty.
He's getting multi-language dubbing rates now. So.
Oh, yeah.
True.
That's right.
Boom.
Yes. Well, we're here to talk about home voiceover studios. You know, it's definitely a niche, but there's so much to it that we just keep coming up with things to talk about.
Yeah.
But the most important thing you need to remember is that you have to have professionals get your studio set up. You can go on Facebook, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go to all these places and ask questions and get 10,000 different answers, all of which George and I will tell you are probably wrong, unless they're people who listen to us. Because we've worked, everybody's an expert in one studio, their own,
right?
Except us two.
And there's some really great names out there who are really great experts in their own studios that are very smart and they know what they're talking about, but
Right.
they're still really know their own studio really, really well.
They're not in your closet.
Yeah.
They don't understand. A lot of engineers who say, "Oh yeah, you got to get this and you have to have this." That's what they use. They've spent 25 years learning how to use all this stuff, and then they expect you to learn it overnight. Doesn't work that way.
No.
There's a simple way to do it. We've got the formula. We know what it's supposed to sound like. What it's supposed to sound like.
Whistle.
There's a way it's supposed to sound, and getting there isn't as hard as you think. Just a number of different formulaic things that we know how to go through to customize it to your space. And you can't go wrong. Look, two experts like us, you really can't go wrong. So if you want to work with George, which lots of people do, you go over to his very extensive website, georgethe.tech.
If you want to work with me, that's where you're going to find me. You're also going to find a whole team of folks who
a huge team you've got now.
Specialists. Right? We not only specialists, but we can only be one person at one time, right? So I've got backup of a lot of great folks, and I have folks who also do on-demand support, which to me is really one of the best services we offer, because when you have a gig that you might lose because oh my gosh, I didn't realize that my port's not mapped, or oh my gosh, I didn't know this happened, or holy cow, this device rebooted and it won't, whatever it is. We do have 911 support now. So, and there's a deep bench of folks, including Dan, who might answer that call and help get you back online. So that's something I'm really proud of among all the things that we do at GeorgeThe.Tech. But if you just want to go right to the source, talk directly to the mustache, you want to go to
homevoiceoverstudio.com.
Yes.
And I've got a number of things I can do for you. Number one, if you got a problem with your audio, I got to hear it. I keep getting people saying, I got a buzz, I got a click, I've got this. There was the one last week. It was somebody's phone. Like, why does it your phone is right next to it.
We were saying that we wanted to do sort of a stump the chump. Was that something that came up? Didn't we say that it was a phone noise?
It was a phone noise.
So we were right.
And that solved it. Of course it was right. What are you going to do?
Okay.
It was, I'm like, you run through your scenarios in your mind. Okay, could be this, could be that. I know what it is. It's the phone. And it was the person's phone. Because this afternoon I was working with some stuff and had my phone up close to these monitors. And I'm like,
monitors are
real. I'm like, it's the phone. There's a lot of RF that comes off of that. And they're very sensitive monitors and they'll hear that. Okay,
but you figured that out. You got the guy back to work, and that's because you are the home studio
master. Exactly. But I also have my service of the Specimen Collection Cup, which was what I was getting to, and that is a great service. You click on the Specimen Collection Cup at my website. Takes you to a Dropbox, explain to me, and it's really important to tell me what microphone you're using, what software you're using, what computer you're using, how are you set up, because someone will send me, and I want it raw, because people will send me processed stuff. How does this sound? Well, it sounds like crap because you don't know how to process this stuff. It's like having processing doesn't mean you have to use it. It's as simple as that. And if you don't know how to use it, don't. As I always say, if you don't know how to use something, don't use it. It's pretty simple.
Or if you don't know what it did, turn it off.
Right, exactly.
Like if you turn something on or add something and you don't know what it did, turn it off. Because probably it did something that somebody else is going to hear. And, Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I hear people running noise gates. I'm not running a noise gate. Yeah, I can see you running a noise gate. You can tell, you can see, you can hear it. Anyway, go over to homevoiceoverstudio.com and I'll be happy to work with you. Talk to anybody that's worked with me. They'll tell you I'm even friendlier than that. Because I'll help you. As a voice actor, I can also give you lots of advice on how to succeed in this business by trying a lot. There's a lot to it. Anyway, you've got your tech update this week, and there's been lots of software issues in the past week, so give us the lowdown.
What do you want, the bad news or the good news first?
Always go with the bad news first.
Bad news first. All right. Well, the first bad news that really threw people for a loop in the last couple of weeks was Audacity dropped a new version, 3.4.
Like a bomb.
Yeah, like a bomb. 3.3.3 maybe was the previous version. Does that sound right to you?
That does sound right.
Something like that. And it was working fine. There was really nothing wrong with it. And that's because that was the 0.3, that was the 0.x version of 0.3, right? So it had several repairs. Well, 0.4 dropped, and there was some pretty serious issues. And I think the main one was around recording in 24-bit. If you tried to record in 24-bit, you had what happened? Nothing?
It would go.
Oh, wouldn't the level just peg?
Yeah, it would just peg the whole way.
Like that, just garbage, right? So there was a workaround, but it was really, you had to mess around with the system. So they did, it seems like they're more rapidly responding to bugs now and rolling out fixes faster. So within a week or two, they had 3.4.1, and then that seemed to fix it for some issues, and other issues still persisted. So there's a 3.4.2 coming any day now, says Paul Lysamelli. I want to say his name right. Well, if I'm going to say his name, say the right name, George. I'm going to see if I can get his right name while we're here chatting.
Yeah, well,
Paul Lysamelli. Is it Lysamelli or Licamelli? Licameli. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, he's
for ruining your name.
Get my name right for crying out loud.
But anyway, he's a contributor on the Audacity voiceover users group on Facebook.
That's where I was reading.
Which is one of the places to get your help with Audacity stuff. And he is one of the very, very long time contributors and developers of Audacity. So he knows. So anyway, 3.4.2 is coming sometime soon. But the bottom line is, if you're on 3.3.3 or another earlier version and it's working great, do not upgrade it.
Yeah,
Don't
I upgraded today because I'm like, oh, maybe they fixed it because there's a fix in there. I put it in there, hit record, nothing.
Oh, it just didn't even roll?
Didn't
It
even
sat there?
roll.
Okay. Yeah, so they're still working out the kinks on that one. Now, on the Adobe side, Adobe Audition released 24.0. And the way Adobe's been releasing things lately, at least in Adobe Audition, is they're on this annual release schedule. They do it every year, same time of year, whether there's something new or not.
Yeah, it's like,
and
I don't see any difference.
There's really been no difference at all of any real material change in the last 3 or 4 years. So if you're on 21 or 22, you ain't missing nothing. If it's working today, don't upgrade it. But anyway, 24.0 did come out. No new features, but the bug fixes include sometimes silence was added at the beginning and end during an MP3 export. That would stink.
Yeah.
That's fixed apparently in 24.0. Fixed the destination is full or no longer available error, which would also really suck. You're trying to save MP3.
I've had that one. That's a reboot and redirect.
And that apparently hopefully is fixed in 24.0. And improved scrolling with the trackpad in a waveform and multi-track, and in the waveform and in the multi-track view. So better scrolling. We get used to how software scrolls when we scroll back and forth. Twisted Wave is really smooth. When it's not smooth, it's annoying. So apparently that's fixed. So those aren't really minor things. Those are some pretty important fixes, but those are in 24. Now, Waves plugins, which I have quite a bit of now training with them. I've had Mike Pearson Adams from Waves teaching some webinars for us at George the Tech. And I just got to recently chat with him on the Pro Audio Suite, my geekier podcast.
Hyper geeky
podcast. And we found out that Clarity, which you've probably heard of by now, it's been out a year and a half, a very powerful noise reduction tool, has a cousin now, or a brother, called D-Reverb. So there's another dereverberating tool out there that is using the machine learning method of removing reverb, which basically means that they have a huge database of audio that's been analyzed in different situations where they go, this is voice and this is not voice, but now focusing on the reverb part, not the noise part. So that is out, and I finally had a reason to try it out. I was helping not a voice actor per se, but a television personality. I'm going to play his audio and then see if anybody recognizes his audio, because you've probably heard it. The guy's done a lot of television, so we'll see if you know the sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play an initial dry sample of the audio that was sent to me. This is after treating the room, by the way. So he's moved into a new home with a pretty large office space. It's got a high ceiling. It's pretty long. And so we did acoustically treat it. We put a whole bunch I just came up with a design. And then we had his installer put everything in, right? And it was like it's a delicate balance between making it still look like someone's nice home office and making it look like a recording studio. We still wanted it to look like an office. So we didn't go too crazy. There's still a bit of empty space, right? So it's a little bit, slightly reverberant. Let's see if you guys can hear this.
Maybe that's why CBS Sunday Morning profiled artist Ed Ruscha in 1982, and again in 2011, and a third time today.
Okay, so I played that sample back, and you can hear a bit of the room around him. And he's also using, at the moment of this recording, a large diaphragm condenser mic, like a VO mic. So it's a mic that hears a lot of things around you, and he's in a big space. So I wanted to make a little processing chain for him, and I wanted it to have as little color or modification of the voice as possible, but dry up that reverb. So I tried first the Isotope RX10 version. Then I tried the Waves Clarity VX version. The two are subtle enough that I don't think you guys are going to make out the differences. They're subtle, but the Clarity de-reverb was pretty impressive, enough to impress him, enough to use it now. And that's what this sounded like.
And a third time today. Glenn Lowry is the director of New York's Museum of Modern Art, which is presenting the biggest Rouché show ever.
It's not dead dry. It's not like you're in a little tiny booth sound,
Right.
but it did soak up a lot more of that room ambience.
But you can adjust it and do it as non-destructively and just
There's a knob. You can turn it. You can add more. You can take away. So in that sample, I'm using I think like a 70% out of 70 out of 100, a pretty high setting. Right. And I was really happy with how it didn't degrade the audio quality. You know, a lot of people doing voiceover for TV and radio they don't always use a high quality side address condenser mic. They often will use a dynamic,
right,
and it won't expose as many flaws in the room. He's in a big empty room with not a lot in it. It's a little bit Spartan, and I think he's using a Warm Audio something WA-47.
Right.
It's a high quality condenser, and it hears a lot more. So there you go. There's a comparison. Hopefully you guys could make that out on YouTube. And I was really happy that in the end we didn't have to just keep throwing more panels up. You know, I could have said, well, let's put 10 more panels up. And yeah, we could keep soaking it down more and more and more and more. But in this case, the room still feels good. It still looks nice. His wife doesn't, throw up in her mouth when she walks in, important things. And now we can get a sound that he's happy with. And that's really important.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because we're always talking about how one of the things we do, one of the most important things we do when working with somebody and building a studio for them is, to me, everything is physical. Mm-hmm. You try to create as dead a room as possible, and as little sound coming in. But as we've explained, that's literally impossible in a home. You've got furnace, refrigerator. Amazing how many times a refrigerator is in there.
Yeah.
All sorts of movement that's going on in the house. Some construction next door. We've had that one a few times.
Leaf blowers and the neighbors' stuff and the trash.
Kids playing basketball next door.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to have something that's going to take it out without affecting your voice, and you think that
we're getting to that point now where we can do that transparently, far more transparently than we used to.
Right.
By using these tools, we're not creating weird artifacts where you sound like a robot,
right,
or you sound like you're underwater or whatever.
It's missing little frequencies here and there.
Yeah. So at the moment, Waves kind of has a little bit of a head start, I think, over Isotope in terms of using these machine learning models. You can guarantee that Isotope is working on their take on this kind of machine learning stuff. It's table stakes now, folks. There are so many plugins and little applications, some free, some not, that will remove reverb and noise. It's becoming way more common, but just kind of cool to hear how well that actually worked. And I'll be doing an interview with this person later, so at that point I'll reveal exactly who it is. But it was really cool to get to work with someone who does a lot of on-camera appearances but still also runs a podcast, both. So
cool. It
was really neat. Anyway, let's move on to your topic of discussion.
Yeah. I get this a lot from people who are, as we were saying, are in different various size rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And, if they're doing animation or they're doing gaming, it's amazing how many different genres of material there are available out there.
Mm.
But if you're working from home, and a lot of us are, I'd say the majority of us are, you have to learn how not to overmodulate. And what overmodulation is when, you peg it in the red and it stays there. And essentially what you're doing is you are overmodulating and it distorts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's new technology coming along that can prevent that. It takes a little while to figure out how to work it with that particular microphone's working in 32-bit
like a
float.
32-bit float thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But not everybody has that. And
Most people don't.
yeah, 99%. We've been recommending this great mic, the new Rode NT1 5th generation, which really just continues to blow our minds about what a great mic this is, especially for the price, which is a deal and a half. It's like $240.
Oh yeah,
bucks.
and they I forgot to mention that they came out with the NT1. I don't know, special edition, which doesn't have the USB, but they've painted them in a bunch of fun colors.
Because they had a lot of them sitting around like,
apparently they had
just painted.
Well, how are we going to move these? Make a paint 'em. So if you want a fun-looking NT1, you can get that. Anyway, sorry.
Great microphone. But how do you not overmodulate? And there's two ways.
On the character stuff, especially. Right?
Especially on character stuff. Now, I know
Dynamics.
Yeah, Pat Fraley used to have this great thing. He'd talk about, if you're, if you don't want to overmodulate, and if you're yelling, you don't yell in somebody's ear unless you're really trying to torture them, like some people I know. But his thing was, he would talk about how, or say you got a commercial where your dad's talking to the girls upstairs, like you turn your head and you go, "Hey, what are you girls doing up there?" What does it sound like? It sounds like you're hitting the mic. It sounds like you are talking up the stairs. There's the theater of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a ninja in a video game and you're cutting off somebody's head, and you don't do it right into the mic, unless you turn away or you back way off and watch the levels. Now the other way is writing the game, which requires you to have your interface right in front of you. Like say if you have a Focusrite 2i2 or a Solo or something like that, you got that gain dial. And of course, I'm always telling you, always in the green, always in the yellow, maybe an occasional flash of red, although and there it goes and starts to go into the orange.
Transient, a quickie.
Yeah, right.
A quick in the red is okay.
That's fine because you can control that.
You're not going to probably hear that.
No, and you're not.
The
it's
more,
not going
the
to
more
overmodulate.
transient or spiky, the less you're going to.
As opposed to really loud, which starts to distort.
Right.
So what you need to do is learn how to adjust your input volume, and that requires writing the gain. Now, sometimes if someone's doing a video game and they'll have lots of lines that are loud, and then there's lots of lines that are more conversational.
Do they break them up that way for you?
They don't, unfortunately. You think they would. But
so it's a good idea to do that yourself.
Do it yourself. Do the soft stuff first. Then do the loud stuff. Because you do the loud stuff first, you might wear your voice out.
Right.
Before you get to...
The loud stuff will change the way your voice sounds on the soft stuff because you've just tired your voice out. Right?
Exactly. So use your voice normally.
Yeah.
And learn what your conversational setting is. And on a 2i2 or any interface for that matter, you take a Sharpie and you go, this is my conversational level, and you mark it. And then you're coming in, and it happens with audiobooks too, and gaming and animation, where you're going to be a little bit louder. Test what, learn what distances are right, and learn how loud you really are doing specific characters. Test it out first and go, this is the setting for being a ninja.
Yeah.
And that's, mark that. And so as you're writing the game, it's like, okay, I'm coming to this, turn it down. And that's how you do that. It sounds simple. You got to learn to listen, and you have to look, and you have to understand what the waveform is supposed to look like. You don't want the waveform going above 0.
Yeah.
I mean, really don't want it going above -3.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth.
And you definitely don't want to we use the word riding the gain because back in the classical engineering days, the engineer might actually control the level while you're recording, right? And that's doing it dynamically over time. That's much more difficult. But to make a preset almost in your brain, or like you said with the pen,
right?
This is my softer read. This is my louder read. You don't want to have 7 or 8 different steps in between. You're never going to keep track of it all.
Right.
You're never going to get it right. Just have 2 settings that work for those 2 styles, and you'll be in good shape. Also, I've had a few clients
Mm-hmm.
use the pad switch to their advantage.
Oh, that's a good idea as well.
Because if your mic has an easy to reach pad switch, not all of them do.
Like minus 20 or minus 10 dB.
I mean, gosh, I don't know. If you're doing some really crazy loud stuff, you might need 20.
Right.
But a lot of mics have like a 10.
Right.
And that seems to be enough for most people, like in audiobooks.
Right.
In audiobooks, you don't really yell.
Right.
Video games, you do.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Video
a
games
lot.
is realism. Audiobooks is more, it's a little more theater. You don't full on scream when you scream. It's a theater scream or whatever. You don't go all out. So 10 dB seems to work fine. And the problem with like the Audio Technica is the mic is the little switch is like it's like you need like a pen, and it's very hard to see. But like the Mojave, I don't know if this one has
No, it
any.
doesn't have anything on it.
Yeah, some mics do. Some of them have that mic switch, very obvious where you can see it and you can flick it. Yeah, that one doesn't have it. But some mics have those. Actually, none of the mics we are using tonight have a pad switch, folks. Isn't that interesting?
The Cat E100S does.
That's right, it does.
And the not the 20.
The AT2035 does. But again,
2035
it's kind of
does.
hard to see it. The AKGs all have a very clearly labeled switch.
Right, and there's a couple others. You know, because I've been dealing with this a lot lately.
Yeah.
Says, why can't I get a level? Okay, what do you? Oh, it's an NT1 or an NT1A, which does have that, and it's a matter of
NT1000 maybe.
It might be the 1000
and the 2000.
There's a bunch of
Yeah.
different mics that have that.
Yeah.
Many times, and I'll go, which mic model is that? And
I know. I literally will say, "What mic is it?" And I Google it, find a picture of it. Where's a picture of the back of the mic?
Okay,
there's the switch.
Where do you have that set? Oh, I've
Yeah.
got it set to minus something or other. All right, put it back to 0. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah,
Suddenly you have your
oftentimes
level
it is
back.
misset. It is often misset.
Right.
Yeah. So
there's
there's another way to do it.
That's right. Anyway, if you've got a question for us, throw it in the chat room. I'm sure you have, there are a billion questions popping out of your head right now.
And
Jeff
this
Holman
is your
sitting here.
last chance.
Your last
for
chance
2023.
for the rest of the year. If you want to get your question answered, now's the time to do it. Jeff Holman will write it down or type it in or send up smoke sniggles or something like that.
Sniggles?
Sniggles, yes.
Yes.
Been a little bit of mouth hasn't been working quite as well.
That's all right. You can call me on all my all my flubs.
I'm careful with you. You're not actually a voice.
I'm delicate.
That's right. Throw it in the chat room right now. We'll get to that right after these really important messages, so don't go away. Voiceover Body Shop Tech Talk number 114 will continue right after those, so don't go away.
This is Ariana Ratner, and you're enjoying VoiceOver Body Shop with Dan Leonard and George Whittam. VOBS.TV.
Oh, hi. You know, if you live in a house and your voiceover studio is in that house, you don't want to disturb everybody else who's living in there. So what you need are good headphones that are made specifically for voiceover. And that's why we have Harlan Hogan's signature series Voice Optimized Headphones 2.0. What's so great about these? Well, one, they have a very flat response, so you only hear exactly what it is you sound like. Second, incredibly comfortable. Leather pads on the outside filled with memory foam, a really comfortable headband that really works with your head. The most important thing, you can wear them for long periods of time. That's really important. Where do you get them? Only at voiceoveressentials.com. That's voiceoveressentials.com. Just go there, look at the headphones, and get them now. Tell them we sent you. Thanks, Harlan.
Hey, this is the time of the show where I talk about Source Connect, which is created by Source Elements. And I've talked about them for several years. So at this point, you have heard an unbelievable amount of information. But I will say, if you don't know about Source Connect because you're watching our show for the first time, you should go check it out at source-elements.com. They create Source Connect, which is the pros way of remote recording an actor from another location, sometimes multiple locations, because a studio sophisticated enough can actually have multiple actors on the same session, all coming in on Source Connect. It's amazing. The sound quality is quite startlingly good. Like if you're used to the way it sounds like when you're in a Zoom meeting or Google Meet or any other meetup chat or conferencing thing, you're going to be kind of shocked at the fidelity and the quality that you get over Source Connect. It is quite startling, and that is why the pros use it. So if you want to become more oriented with it and get used to how it functions, I would recommend, instead of just getting a demo, just go over to source-elements.com and actually sign up for your Source Connect service. You can get it as a subscription and get started. That way you'll actually have their support. You can only get the support for free if it's on a subscription. So we recommend that you do that, and that way you have their excellent support. And it's award-winning support, by the way. So anyway, that's it. That's it. No more Source Elements for this year. Thank you, Source Elements, for
Use it.
Just use it. Then we really appreciate Source Elements for supporting us all these years. Let's get on to the last spot and then into your questions right after this.
Well, hey there, it's David H. Lawrence with VO Heroes, and wouldn't it be cool if there was a very simple tool, drag and drop tool, that would guarantee that the audio you need to upload to ACX or any other audiobook platform is perfectly set up in terms of the text standards, the root mean square normalization, the peak normalization, the noise floor? Guess what? There is. And I want you to have it absolutely free. It's called Audio Cupcake, and you can find it at audiocupcake.com. I helped create this software. It was built to my specs and my standards for when I do audiobooks, and I know it's going to work for you. Now, it's only available for Macintosh because you Windows users, you have the ability to use other tools that work for you. But in this case, you edit your final raw WAV file for a chapter, you drop it onto Audio Cupcake, and out comes the 192K mono MP3 file you can upload immediately. That's audiocupcake.com. Audiocupcake.com. I hope you love it.
Hi, this is Bill Farmer, and you are watching VoiceOver Body Shop. It's great.
And guess what? We're back to answer your questions. Because
for the last time in 2023.
That's right.
I'm kind of emotional about it. I'm a little verklempt.
I know. We're going to, one of the things we're going to start doing in 2023 is we're going to start talking a little bit more about podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and as I always say, just because everybody can do a podcast doesn't mean everybody should.
But if you've got something to say,
or
you have a great way of telling it, you have a passion, maybe you've got either an idea for a story or you just have an amazing family history, something that just is really unique. Maybe a podcast is for you.
That's right. And and the great thing about podcasting, it can be any length. It can be any format, interview format, storytelling.
It could be
audio
live.
drama.
It could be edited.
That's right. And that's the great thing about editing is you can sound like crap and then
we
rearrange things and it sounds fabulous.
Yeah, we recommend that you edit it.
Right.
If you're new to doing a show, you're going to absolutely be editing it because nobody wants to hear you ramble and all that stuff all through an hour-long podcast. But anyway, it's something we're going to talk about a lot more, and we love doing it. We've done quite a few studios. Dan's produced a bunch of shows. Sue, our very own producer, is a podcasting pro herself.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a lot more about that subject in 2024.
Yeah. Slightly different bent. If you're a good voice actor and you've got a good studio, though, podcasting should be easy.
Yeah, it can be. And hopefully we'll be here to answer those questions too.
Right. So be prepared in 2024 when we start talking a little bit more about podcasting. But we'll still cover the voiceover stuff.
Absolutely.
Because
it's all about capturing a performance in a microphone, whether it's somebody else's script or your own,
Right.
Podcast is like the self-scripted of voiceover in a way, if you think about it.
That's right. And there is no script for this show.
No, there is not.
And you can usually tell. All right, let's get to some of the questions here. You go for the first one from Fiber Jazz.
There he is in YouTube, asking about the new Rode NT1 Signature. That's the mic I actually mentioned a minute ago. Is it the same microphone as the Rode NT1 4th Gen, but with color options and also a much lower price? Okay, good question. And I believe the word on the street is that it's the Rode NT1 5th Gen mic without the USB functionality inside the mic.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense because you would think they would still have a lot of NT1 4th gens and that they would just paint those.
I wish we had a nickel for every one of those we've sold.
Yeah, I know. But so that is what I've heard. And the source right now I can't name because I can't remember who said it. So take that all with a grain of salt. But my understanding is it will sound exactly like a Rode NT1 5th Gen, just without those extra functions and in a bunch of fun pastel cool colors.
Right. And that mic sounds great on its own.
It's a damn good mic to start with. And now at $150.
Wow.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Rode has the scale of production to do that kind of thing. And it kind of, when the Rode NT1 5th Gen came out at $250 with USB and all that, it made me realize these guys have some unbelievable production scale that they operate at.
Right.
I was pretty blown away at that price point. Because the mic for the prior generation, the 4th Gen, was a little bit more expensive and didn't have any additional function. It was just a normal condenser. So pretty mind-blowing.
Cool.
Another question, do demo players color the sound of your recordings? And if so, can you recommend players that are more neutral? Thanks.
Well, that's an easy one. No, they don't do anything.
They shouldn't.
No, an HTML player is just that. It's playing your audio through there.
Yeah,
now,
usually an MP3, right?
Right. Now, at world-voices.org, we have a demo player. If you join the organization, you get the demo player that you can put on your website as a digital signature in your email. So it's like, you want to hear my demos? Click on this. All your demos pop
right
up.
in the email.
And we know it sounds great because, I mean, demos sound great as well as they are recorded.
Yeah.
And if you're using, there's no difference between them. Now, there's other demo players, some that are really expensive that have all these tools and
More
stuff
bells and whistles,
that you don't really need. But somebody uses them. People who are very good at their marketing and getting all the analytics and stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine. Ours gives you a little bit of analytics with all the different, how many people are, getting it, what cuts are being used, where it's coming from, stuff like that. Important stuff.
Yeah.
So, join world-voices.org and get the demo player from there. We worked really hard on it.
If you do have a player on some website template you're using and it doesn't sound exactly like the original audio, don't use it. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
It should only simply queue up and play that file from the server exactly as it was stored. So there should be zero change in quality.
And exactly as it was recorded.
Yeah.
Sharon McKeague, sounds like McKeag. Sharon McKeag.
Thank you for writing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A beginner question, and that's why we're here. What does loopback capability mean? I have an SSL2 and use Adobe Audition. Oh, great starter stuff.
Yeah, that's really good stuff.
I don't yet have Source Connect. If I do a live directed session over Zoom, how do I loop back? Does that mean I can play back just what I recorded?
Well, I'm glad you gave us those additional details.
Right,
because
that's exactly what it means.
Yeah, Zoom has its own. Zoom actually has a way to do it. It's called screen share with audio.
Share audio, right.
So you can, it's a weird thing because you have to share your screen, but who cares as long as what you're on screen is literally just the audio, right? And so when you share a screen with audio, I'm not going to guarantee it works every time, but if it should automatically create that loop so that when you play, that audio is fed back down the line on Zoom. Now, that should be the way it works with the SSL2. Now, SSL2 also came out with a new firmware, which has what they call loopback. And this is where things get confusing.
It's software driven?
It's a software loopback, but loopback isn't a loopback isn't a loopback. So what we've surmised so far is that the SSL2's loopback function is not designed for what we want it for. What we want more of is really more of a playback function. We want to play a take and let the guest or the director, whoever, the client who's listening, hear it. The loopback function that is used in the SSL2, the Audient Evo 4, and a couple others is actually more of a musician's or podcaster's thing. Well, what it does is it sends the audio that's coming back from Zoom into your computer, but on a different set of channels. So now you can record yourself and you can record the person coming back to you.
Mhm.
If you're doing music, that could be the audio coming back from a synthesizer plug-in or something, or soft instrument, and you want to record that to another track. That's what that loopback's for. So knowing which one does what can be confusing. I can tell you that the Yamaha AG03 has the right kind of loopback.
They've got a new one out too.
The Mark II is out,
Yeah.
which is a great piece of gear. I think it's the UR series, the Steinberg UR12 22, has the correct kind of loopback. The new Focusrite 2i2 4th gen, I think it has the wrong kind of loopback.
Well, it's got the
I think.
air thing, but is that the same thing?
No, it has a new driver that lets you do a loopback, but I think it's the wrong kind. As you can see, it isn't that straightforward, and it's a good question. So I'm glad you asked it. But
use Zoom; it's a lot easier.
it is that well. It's not
for the most part.
If it's a Zoom directed session, that screen share with audio function will make that a lot easier on you. So it's a good question.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip Ellen Cochran's question for a little bit.
Okay, you got it.
That's going to require a little bit longer of an answer.
Yeah, you're right.
But Jeff, you're on. You've got to ask your question.
Oh, let me get that mic. Okay, mic's hot.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, in regards to writing the gain on my PreSonus Revelator IO24, the gain function, you have to like hit a button and then do the dial, and the dial is like, numbers. It's not really like a set position.
Yeah,
So is there a preset that I can like go pow and just like hit a button and it'll go right to that gain?
You can. The Revelator has those two little numbers on the front.
Yeah.
And those are for recalling presets.
Oh, sweet.
So I believe it's been long enough since I've used mine that I could be giving you the wrong information. But it does have preset functionality that can be recalled from the face of the unit. I just can't remember the actual how to do it right now, but I know it can. So you could do exactly that. You could make one preset for the spoken word, who calls it the 100% voice? Is that Cashman?
Must be.
Just your normal speaking voice. And then you can have one where the gain is much lower for your high output stuff, and just recall that by pressing a button. But I don't remember right now how to set that up. It's been too long. But yes, you can do that. Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it simple.
I've even seen people do like another preset for just muting the mic, which isn't that simple to set up. But that's another one I've seen people
muting the mic.
Do.
Unplug it.
Exactly.
It always works.
Boom, plunk.
Totally.
Thanks for the question. Do we have any more, or did we?
We do
already...
have one more from Ellen Cochran,
Okay,
which requires a little bit of thought.
Yeah, it does require a little bit of thought.
And I'll let you go first. And her question is, "Hi guys, what are your New Year's resolutions before Thanksgiving even hits?"
Oof. Yeah. Let me guess. You've already decorated your tree.
People have been starting to put up their lights around here. Some of the radio stations are playing a rotation once an hour of Christmas music. Used to be right after Thanksgiving they would start. Now it's after Halloween.
I did get a fresh batch of lights at Costco the other day.
Okay,
40% off. So anyway, New Year's resolutions. Well, I guess mine are more centered around, because I'm in business mode right now, thinking they're more around my business, but I've got some things that I want to have happen for my business in 2024. I want to have multilingual content and support. So for my company, for George the Tech, I would really like to be able to provide content, training content, which we already have a huge library of content, but I'd like to get that stuff localized. We just had Jeff Howell on talking about that. I would love to localize and dub all of our content in as many languages as possible. Obviously, this is no small feat. Obviously, it's not cheap to do it.
Can you imagine someone trying to dub in 300 episodes of this show? It'd take about a century.
It really would. And obviously, AI may be a part of the process, but will certainly not be the voice of the show, of my content. We will be using humans for sure. So that's a big one for me. I want to have international languages, and I want to have an international website. So someone coming in from Portugal or Brazil gets a Brazilian version. You know those websites that have little flags, and you can click on your flag.
Right, and
that's
translate it to properly.
That's a dream of mine, to have a website that's in multiple languages. So it's maybe a dream, less of a resolution, but that's what I could come up with off the top of my head. And from a personal standpoint, my resolution is to encourage my daughter. If she's watching, she's probably not, but if she is, Elijah, get back into voiceover, will you? I want to get her back into voice acting and getting coached by Martha, and hopefully we get her to VO Atlanta, and she's back in the swing of things by VO Atlanta. So that'd be another little resolution for me to encourage my daughter to get back started up in voiceover again. There you go. Those are a couple for you.
All righty. Well, I go off in so many different directions, and sometimes in the same moment, which makes it hard to get either one of them done. I mean, we've this show, which takes a lot of time and effort, and we take and doing voiceover. Like I was doing voiceover this morning for some Turkish company, and okay, this doesn't translate very well. And I'm president of worldvoices.org, which is almost like a full-time job because there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But as a resolution, I want to start learning how to live in the moment and experience what's going on. I find sometimes I go through life or I'll drive somewhere and I don't even remember driving there.
Yeah.
Or like I had with last week with Jeff Howell, having a Mitch McConnell moment. If you live in the moment and carefully and really concentrate on what's happening around you, that helps. Now, my new car doesn't allow me to do that because it does all of it for me.
Wait, does that mean it lets you daydream?
Somewhat, which is why I don't remember where I've been. It's like it keeps you in your lane. It says there's a car, in your blind spot. It used to be just a little yellow light. Now it's like ding 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 ding. Oh, holy crap! Got to live in the moment, and it's not easy to do. I know there's some people that really work on living in the moment and experiencing life. At my age, you got to go. You only have so many more chapters to go and make the most out of each one of those. Now, my mom, who's 93 this week, happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Still sharp as a tack.
Wow.
Sharper than me, as I say.
It's a blessing.
Yes, she says, how is it that, she has a mind of a 36-year-old and the body of a 93-year-old?
Yeah, how'd that happen?
It happens, living in the moment means, being there for the people you love, being there for your clients, and concentrating on really making yourself there and not drifting all over the place, which is tough for someone like me who's a little bit on the ADHD side.
Me too, yeah.
It's like squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my New Year's resolution. It really is to try harder to live in the moment, and and we're gonna be living in the moment when we continue doing this show next year. Like we said, we're gonna make some changes. It's not that we've run out of things to say with voiceover, because there's always something new. There's a lot of people in this business, but there are 10 times as many people doing podcasting.
Yeah.
Or at least trying to do podcasting.
Yeah.
And
we just have so much to contribute.
Right.
There's so much to say about it, and we've all been involved with it for so long.
Right.
It just feels like it's the right time to introduce that to our
especially
content.
With audio, because how many times you listen to a podcast and it sounds like they recorded it in their bathroom, and or
an interview that the guest sounds terrible, and how do we make them sound better? That kind of thing.
Right.
There's so much to talk about.
Right. I mean, I was doing a podcast last year, and they were an open window in Midtown Manhattan, and there's ambulances going by, and it's like, can you take that out? you could take that out by closing the window and perhaps not being in Midtown Manhattan when you're doing this, or in a very reverberant dining room or something along those lines. We want to teach you guys how to do that properly. And those of you doing voiceover, you'll understand all this stuff. But we want to encourage people to do podcasting because, as I like to describe it, it's the great democratization of broadcasting.
Yeah.
It used to be those programs you would hear at Saturday morning or Sunday morning at 5:30 a.m. And it's like, and now it's time for this, and they bring some priest on or a rabbi or somebody who's working in social services or something like that. That's all podcasting is. Intro, body, outro. And we want to teach you guys how to properly format it, but most importantly, making it sound good. What you guys like refer to as broadcast quality. Except you're not broadcasting, you're on the internet. It's streaming quality.
Streaming quality.
Broadcast quality means it doesn't sound bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for us this week. We've got a little bit more to talk about on the other side of this break, so don't go away. We'll be right back at VoiceOver Body Shop Tech Talk right after this.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on the VoiceOver Body Shop.
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. There's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions, bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
And now, God, I'm in a phase of the moon here. See, if I turn my head
that's called
this way,
Rembrandt lighting.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I'm the girl with the pearl earring. We're going to talk to you right now quickly about voiceactor.com. What is voiceactor.com? Voiceactor.com is a great website where you can get a website. As a voice actor, you have to have a website. No matter what you're doing, you should probably have a website. Being a voice actor, very, very important. And there are certain elements that you have to have with a website. Now, some people get real creative and they take their time and they're like, okay, I want it to have this color scheme and this border and all. That's great. Except, I think for the most part, nobody cares. What you need is your name, and a pleasant looking background and arrangement. Your demos, which I think are probably more important than anything else, and even more important than that, people might like your demos, but if they don't know how to get a hold of you, what are you going to do? Your name, your demos, and how to contact you with a pleasant surrounding, easy to navigate. That's what they do at voiceactor.com with templated websites. Go in there, see what will look good for you, and pick that one out. You can adjust the colors, put the pictures where you want. It's totally customizable, and you can do it really quick. The menus are super duper easy in how you change the colors and how you change the fonts and all that stuff. And they keep adding more and more templates, which Joe Davis over at Voice Actor website is very proud of, that they're continually updating it. You can get yourself online in a dang hurry, like within an hour. Less than an hour, you've got a website. And then for $20 a month, you get some other extras with that. You're able to get your own URL that you can put on whatever server you want. VoiceActor.com to get your voice actor website up and running right now.
We are the World Voices Organization,
Also known as WOVO. We're the not-for-profit industry association of freelance voice talent. Voiceover is a complex entrepreneurial business.
WOVO is there to promote the professional nature of voice work to the public, to those already established in their voiceover practice,
And to those who want to pursue voiceover as a career.
Membership benefits include
A supportive and creative community.
a profile and demos on voiceover.biz, our searchable directory of vetted professional voice talent,
Our exclusive demo player for your personal website.
our mentoring program, business resources, and our video library.
Our annual WovoCon conference, a fun and educational weekend with other members with the chance to learn and network.
Webinars and great speakers, and weekly social chats with other members around the world.
If your world is voiceover,
Make WOVO part of it. World Voices Organization.
we speak
for those
who speak for a living.
You're still watching VOBS?
And I'm going to assume that we're back.
We should be.
One last time for 2023. We forgot Jeff. Jeff has a New Year's resolution, and make it quick.
It's a good one, though. But
Yeah.
we should throw to Jeff. Jeff, tell us your New Year's resolution.
My New Year's resolution is to get on a cop show. I've always wanted to be on a cop show like FBI or SWAT, and now that I've lost 130 pounds, now I'm all ready to.
All right. What's his IMDb? Throw it up there, Sue.
Give us your IMDb again.
It's www.imdb.me/Jeff Holman.
There you go.
With one L, one N.
All right. Can't wait to see you on an episode of Bosch Legacy.
Hell yeah.
Which is
there you go.
Great show about Los Angeles. You know, he says, meet
love
at DeLongpre Park. I'm like, oh, I know where that is. You know, or they're at Trejo's Donuts or Trejo's Tacos or something along those lines.
Oh, I love it.
Trejo's Transmissions.
Does he have a transmission?
I don't know, but he might.
He should.
The guy's very
Absolutely
inventive and, very well loved by the community.
Yeah, thanks,
That he
Jeff.
is.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
If you need help with your home voiceover studio, you can come work with me by going over to homevoiceoverstudio.com and check out all my services. Or the guy that's got more services on his website than...
I know. It's a bit of a Greek restaurant menu. We all know what that is. Like the menu at what's the one we used to go to down the street with the H?
H down the street.
Starts with an H. Hugo's. It's got a heck of a menu.
Oh, great restaurant.
But my website's got a lot going on. We understand that. But if you go to georgethe.tech, and if you click the green button at the top left, that's a good place to start. If you just don't want to read through the site and navigate it, you can get help with what help you need right there. And that's a good way to start. But if you also like coupons and you like discounts, georgethe.tech/VOBX is where I will have our coupon codes. And maybe we'll have some juicier ones for the, it's that time of year. So we'll kick it up a notch. So stay tuned over there.
Wonderful time of the...
Oh, no. Did they just defrost What's-Her-Face again?
Yes, they did.
Actually, they defrost her on Halloween. They start really early now. Anyway, and we have 3 booths for sale that we're brokering. 2 massive studio bricks, about 7 feet by 6 feet.
God, you raise a family in there.
And one diamondvocalbooth.com series booth, all here in LA. They're on the website now. If you go to the services page, because that's the only place I had to put them, you'll see them on there. We need to get these sold for our clients. They are taking up some serious space, as you can imagine, and they need to get them out of there. So if you're interested, reach out to us. Actually, Sue is helping with that.
Oh, good.
I put her in charge of that, so you can email Sue and she can get your information and get your bid in the ring. Throw your hat in the ring to get one of those. Let's get to the one more thing.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
We want your contributions.
All right. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, if you've been watching this show for a while, which a lot of you have for like 12 years.
Some of you, yeah.
In the last year or so, if there's been a real golden nugget, something that you thought a guest of ours talked about or something that George and I brought up on the show that you think would make a nice little short, because we want to throw a bunch of those on our social media during the next month or so before we retool a little bit, write to us and say, this was a good section, this was a good segment, and we will curate that down and get that out because we want that information getting out to people.
Put a link to the YouTube of the show, or at the very least the episode number of the show and approximately timestamp of when and what we were talking about. That we'll try to assemble those. We'll get those out on social media, and if you contribute one that we use, we'll include your social tag in there if you want to be tagged. Put that in there, and we'll also include that and give you credit. So
absolutely,
people would really appreciate that.
But the other people we need to thank are the people who donate to the show.
Oh, by the way, how do you send those in? Because we didn't tell them that part. Email to
theguys at vobs.tv. Sue got that up there. Did she put that up there?
I'm sure she did. She's always on it, but
she did.
Oh, there it is. The guys at vobs.tv. Thanks, Sue. She does a great job. All righty.
Even in pain.
Yeah, let's thank our amazing donors who have stuck with us through thick and thin, mostly through thick.
These are our executive producers? Okay,
guess.
But we're not going to go that far. Donors. We'll stick with donors.
You start.
Greg Cooper.
Grace Newton.
Christopher Epperson.
Robert Leadham.
Stephen Chandler.
Casey Clack.
Jonathan Grant.
Tom Pinto.
Greg Thomas.
A Doctor Voice.
Antland Productions.
Martha Kahn.
949 Designs.
Sarah Borges.
Philip Sapir.
Brian Page.
Rob Ryder.
Got that right. Shauna Pennington Baird.
Don Griffith.
Trey Mosley.
Diana Birdsall.
Maria Marcus. And Sandra Manwiller. Thank you all for your donations, making the show technically perfect. It actually probably looks really good tonight.
I hope so.
It's good to be in the studio. I mean,
Yeah.
it's more fun this way.
It is. It's worth the almost hour drive in traffic.
Come a little early. Come for lunch. It's a
You're
lot
right.
easier.
I could get here a little earlier, couldn't I?
You really could. It's only twice a month. It's easy enough. Anyway, we also need to thank our amazing
sponsors like Harlan Hogan's Voiceover Essentials.
Why do I have to actually read it? You'd think I would have it memorized by now. Voiceover Extra, thanks to John Florian.
Thanks, John. Source Elements.
VOHeroes.com, thanks to David H. Lawrence the 17th.
VoiceActor.com, thanks
Joe
to Joe Davis.
And worldvoices.org. That's world-voices.org, where I am the president and CEO and chief bottle washer. We got some great stuff over at world-voices.org. Please join us and be part of lots of cool stuff. Like we got a big conference coming up in Chicago next year.
That's right.
It's gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we need to thank Jeff Holman. Put up his IMDb one more time because he's been,
he has been so loyal. Thank you, Jeff.
We
really appreciate it. We really do appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
right on.
Yeah,
a lot of work in the chat room there, and
it makes the show so much smoother. We appreciate it.
And
IMDb.me, IMDb.me. This is for all you listeners. / Jeff JEFF, not the other Jeff Holman, not with an E. There's no 2L. HOLMAN.
Right.
The simple version of Holman.
And thanks a whole lot to Sue Merlino, who's
Thanks,
suffering
Sue.
with back pain and but she gets it done. Not even here. We like having her here because she's real pleasant to have around. But it's also great that she gets this done. Sue, take care of yourself, and
thank you.
Looking forward to working with you in 2024.
Yes.
Feel better, Sue.
Yes.
So anyway, that's going to do it for us tonight. Mr. Whittam,
you know what?
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure. But you know who's missing and we didn't get to thank?
Who?
Lee Penny.
And, of course, Lee Penny just for being Lee Penny.
Where are you, Lee?
Yeah, come visit us.
France, Arizona? I don't know.
Somewhere in a kitchen, I'm sure.
Gets around that guy.
That's right. Anyway, look, we're here to help you with your home voiceover studio and advice on how to run a voiceover business, because it's an entrepreneurial business, kids. It ain't showbiz.
Yeah.
Add a little bit of showbiz. But it is a business, and we want you to learn how to do it right. Mostly, we want you to sound good. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but we've come to the conclusion that if it sounds good,
it is good.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is Voiceover
Body Shop.
Or VOBS. Tech Talk.
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk. Tech Talk. Tech Talk.
Tech.
Have a great holiday season, everybody. We'll see you next time.